Indiana is a team that a lot of people are sleeping on in the Big Ten this year. I think they're actually going to be pretty solid. They might not quite make it to a bowl game, but they will be a pretty good team. They'll compete in a lot of their games. A tough schedule with a few teams at the top of the conference is definitely going to make it more difficult to find their way to 6 wins, but it's not completely out of the question. I've seen some predictions with Indiana at 3 or 4 wins. I do think they'll surpass that. I think they'll have a decent year compared to expectations. The non-conference schedule is really easy with FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. All three of those will be pretty easy wins. And then looking at the Big Ten, there's a decent amount of winnable games on here. A road trip to UCLA. It's going to be tough. I'm sure UCLA will be favored, but this is a game that Indiana will definitely be able to compete in. The same goes for the home game against Maryland, another one they could definitely possibly win. A road trip to Northwestern, another possible win there. So we're already, those first 6 games, Indiana could win all of those first 6 games potentially. I'm not saying that's going to happen because that would be really tough for Indiana to win 6 straight games because they're not quite that good. But I wouldn't be shocked if they came out of this first stretch of their schedule with 4 wins, maybe even 5. It's not impossible for sure. After the first bye week, though, things get super tough. Nebraska and Washington at home, a road trip to Michigan State might be a winnable game there. But then Michigan right after that. 3 of those 4 are definitely going to be losses, maybe all 4. After the second bye week, a road trip to Ohio State, super tough also. And then Purdue to end the year is another winnable game. So really, if you look at all those games, there's a potential for 8 wins on here. They would have to not lose a single game they're favored in, but Indiana could maybe finish as high as 8-4. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is within the realm of possibility. I think 6 or 7 wins is also pretty likely, but just looking at the rest of the Big Ten, there's a lot of teams who are really going to be trying to push for a bowl game. And I think in the end, it might hurt the conference as a whole. There could be a decent amount of 5 and 7 teams. And going ahead and looking at Indiana's schedule, it's also possible they finish as low as 5 and 7. So definitely want to watch out for some of those road trips like UCLA and Northwestern and Michigan State, because all of those teams are going to be hungry for a home win to try and push their way towards 6 wins. They've got 8 home games and 4 away games, which is pretty helpful for Indiana. Only 2 of their opponents are ranked in our rank and file top 25 with Michigan and Ohio State. So Indiana's schedule is only a rating of 3.5 out of 10. Moving on to the official prediction, though, I mentioned those first 6 games as being key. We only have Indiana winning 4 out of the 6. The losses to UCLA and Northwestern, both of the road games. I could easily see Maryland as a loss there, but I do think they'd pick up one of the other 2 as a win. So I think 4-6 is probably going to be worst case scenario in those first 6 games. I could also see them getting to 5 wins. Maybe they beat Northwestern, maybe they beat UCLA. But Indiana could have a strong start to the year, which they are going to need if they want to make a bowl game. Because after the bye week, remember the schedule gets really tough. Nebraska and Washington at home, those will both be losses. So if Indiana starts the season 4-2, they're going to just immediately drop to 4-4. And then with Michigan and Ohio State, those last 2 games with Michigan State and Purdue become must wins to make a bowl game. We have them doing it over Michigan State, but not Purdue, which puts the record at 5-7. Looking at all the percentages, the projected record's a bit higher, 5.85 and 6.15. It's not out of the question for Indiana to make a bowl game. I'm going to go ahead and predict the 5-7 record, but I could also easily see 7-5, a win over Purdue, a win over Northwestern maybe UCLA. Any of those 3, they could tack on 1 or 2 of those, and they would make a bowl game just like that. So it's not impossible. Even though a lot of people really don't like Indiana this year, I think they could have a solid season. Didn't quite make it to a bowl game in my prediction, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did do it on the football field. FPI's got them a bit lower than us, 5.3 and 6.7, but still within that 5 to 6 win range, and only a 0.5% chance to make the college football playoff. With both Michigan and Ohio State on the schedule, Nebraska and Washington, I think those really are going to be 4 losses there. There's not much Indiana's going to be able to do to make the playoffs. So I'm going to say that's out of the question completely for this year. But an 8-win season as the best case scenario is not bad for this Indiana team. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in our next video.